I'm getting 7 plastic surgeries tomorrow. I'm here in Thailand and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And it's really occurring to me that there's no instruction manual for life. That the topic of how one becomes what one is just so complicated, it's difficult to even begin to scratch the surface. I didn't really predict this trajectory for myself. My parents would not have predicted it for myself. And I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm doing this in some respects. But it's just striking me kind of how fucking crazy all this is, how absurd all this is. Every single car that's down there, every errand that someone's running, how they're in this situation they're running the errand because it's whatever option made most sense to their mind. I always call it the law of strongest motive, so you can call it, the law of the most self-satisfying motive, the law of just doing whatever makes the most sense. But everyone down there is just mechanically going from A to B, from B to C, doing whatever their mind gives them as the next objective. And I'm doing the same fucking thing, just with surgeries and stuff. And that's just all that life is. It's the mechanical striving of the will, whatever the will gives us, that's all that we can do. And we don't get to pick, we don't get to pick our goals, our obsessions, our fixations, our missions, our visions, our illusions. We can be a slave to our will, and I say can, it's kind of ironic. Well, we are a slave to our will, but we can't will what we will. We do what we will, we have to do what we will, but we can't will what we will, because the will, the mind, that's the self. If we were able to will what we will, that would mean we have like another self that controls this self, but we don't. And so I just know that all the things that are really important to me right now, the hardmaxxing, these different goals in life, this girl that I care a lot about, it's because my mind fixates on these things and it makes them my objectives that I have no choice but to pursue. And then if I, achieve these different things, then oftentimes I'm disillusioned, and then the will give me, another objective, another goal, or maybe we could even say another illusion in some sense. And that whole process of striving and the blind striving of the will, the aimless striving of the will, that's just all that life really is, people say life is diversion, Pascalian diversion. And I think that they're kind of correct, as far as just the day-to-day, banality of it. But as far as the big picture, the meta trajectory, things like careers, building a business, family, kids, relationships, what are those things? It's kind of macro diversions, and it's just whatever the will gives us. That's what our life trajectory, that's what our mission is going to be. And so I just find myself, here incarnate in this life, in a biology, in a mind that's not neurotypical, and that's led me down a very different path. It's had a very different life experience than most people. And I think it's much easier, if you're kind of one of these NPC types, if you're following one of the more like pre-packaged lifestyle options, so to speak, because there are some people that are content, believe it or not, that are content with like the basic cubicle lifestyle, basic family, basic long-term relationship with a basic partner who has a basic appearance. And it's like, what if your will demands more out of life? Like, what if you're the kind of person where just like the normal levels of attainment and experience in life, like you just can't, it won't suffice for you. What if you're the type of person whose will demands more out of life? And ultimately, those are the only people who are gonna get more out of life. Those are the people who are bound to get more out of life because they have no fucking choice but to strive for it. And of course, there's suffering that comes from the imbalance between, what our will demands, what our will wants, and our current situation. There's no instruction manual for life. It's just whatever our will puts before us. And if the ideas that are inculcated into us by general society or by our parents,
if those are not compelling to the will, then the kind of preset options as far as how we live our life, they won't apply to us. And so we have to figure out something else. But that means that we're trailblazing, which means that there's not, steps in the snow ahead to follow, which means that you end up in these fucking situations where I'm in Thailand and I have 7 surgeries in 3 days and I feel horrible. And it's just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, not that I regret the surge, like it's all part of my plan and stuff, but it's like, my plan? Is that really my plan? It's like every idea that I have, I didn't choose to have it happen to me. It was just a mental impulse, including everything I'm saying right now. It's all just recombinations of all the information that I've been exposed to since birth, in conjunction with my genetics and disposition and intelligence and all of that. And so it just feels surreal knowing how fake everything is. Knowing that it's like a game of Monopoly or some kind of video game, or maybe just a movie almost that you're like watching from the outside. Like the way I conceptualize life, that I've conceptualized it for a while, is that it's like a movie where
just because we deeply desire things, it doesn't mean that this world's blue-pilled and it'll actually fulfill our desires. Like a lot of people have unfulfilled desires, and there's just all kinds of tragedies like that, all kinds of misfortune, all kinds of injustice. I mean, there is no justice, no cosmic justice, no cosmic injustice. There's just things that happen. And so I get to these mental spaces where I'm just thinking, like, all that there is clumps of molecules, arrangements of temporal molecules that are following certain laws, following their scripts from beginning to end, whether a human, whether a car that's manufactured in a factory, whether any of these buildings, because every single one of these buildings will eventually no longer fucking exist. And that's just what life is. I see it as mechanical. I see it as systematized. And I'm gonna get called a sociopath or something, but it's kind of hard for me to see or kind of cognize most people as like real sentient people. Because most people, it's like, they're so understandable. They're so like predictable, I guess, based on their inputs. Like most people, I feel like I fully understand them just, after almost just a glance, let alone a conversation or something, where like I can immediately place them into a type. Like this is this type of person. I understand why they do the things they do. I understand the worldview. I can just grasp it all. And so that's why the people that really light me up, the people that really are intriguing and fascinating to me, is people that I can't really understand. People that I can't predict. People who are uniquely alive. And I don't think I'm different, by the way. I know that I'm mechanically following my scripts as well. It's just some people who are a bit more individuated, they're a little bit different than kind of following the normal life course. They seem like they're a separate category, like when I come across those people. But I know that they're not. I know that it's the same phenomenon, just with a little bit different manifestation, a little bit more opaque, complex manifestation. But those are the people that I want to have as part of my life, and relationally, and girls and everything. Because if I feel like I can fully grasp someone like as a system, like they don't feel fully human to me. Like it feels like a robot. It feels like a very complex gearbox. And so I need people that are more than that. People that break my conceptualizations of mankind, my characterology categories. People who I can't grasp, who are beyond those categories, who break those categories, who force me to kind of rearrange my different abstract delineations and dichotomies that I kind of understand people through and refract them through. I'm here in Bangkok, Thailand, if that's how you say it. I'm getting a lot of cosmetic procedures tomorrow in about 24 hours, 23 hours now, actually. About seven procedures. It kind of depends how you differentiate some of them, if you consider some of them one procedure or not. And it's occurring to me that there's no instruction manual to this life. I have more big questions than I have answers. And there are no answers to the big questions of life. There's just things that happen. There's people who strive after goals. There's things that we enjoy, things that we don't enjoy. But there's no redemption, there's no hope, there's no purpose, there's no teleology or right or wrong in some kind of transcendental sense.
There's just people striving after their self-interest, blindly following the will until the very end. And I know that wherever I end up, whatever good or bad things happen, whether the situation in a year is better or worse than my situation now, that it's all mechanical. Because if it wasn't, all of the trash years that I've had, I wouldn't have had them be that way. I would have chosen for them to be better. But for specific causes, specific dominoes that fell, those years had to be poor years. And so I'm already slightly past the late checkout of this hotel. I need to get going. I'm in, one of those states right now, but I'm glad I could get this footage, hopefully get this edited, because it's been a minute since I've done some long form content. So glad I could kind of get some of my thoughts out there, and I'll make sure I kind of fill in the gaps, adding more commentary where needed. I'm always better when I think before I speak. I'm not, impromptu speaking is okay sometimes, but when I think before I speak, I'm always better off because I'm very good at writing, and it's kind of that same process of like really clarifying, distilling, organizing, structuring my thought, and then sharing it. That's the highest value add that I can provide with my mind. So that's me. That's my phenomenon. I'm here now. I won't be here forever. And I just hope that while I am here, I can carve a little bit of enjoyment out of this existence, this crazy existence of blind striving, where every single one of these buildings was built as a result of striving, of a few particular powerful men, and then just everyone under that, who contributed from the very top to the bottom, the construction workers. And acts of the will, strength of the will is what built everything here. It's what created everything. And so what's the very first principle? Is it God? Is it deism? Is it evolution? I don't know. I'm agnostic. I don't claim to know. If I positively claimed evolution, that's like positively claiming religion. That's like another religion, basically. So I'm agnostic and I don't know. And the reality is everyone's agnostic, because even the Bible, Christian Bible, it talks about faith. And what is faith? It means you don't know. So Christians are agnostic too. They just don't understand what that means. No one knows what the fuck's going on, what the fuck we're doing, how the fuck all of this got here. I don't know how the fuck I got here. And it's just all absurd. I hope these surgeries go well. I hope I'm in a better situation in a couple months than I am now, and a couple months after that than I am 2 months from now. But whether I am or not, it's out of my control. Life is, I use the train track analogy. We can use tiles too. It'd be like if the next tile was fucking invisible, and so I thought that it could be placed anywhere, but no, it needs to be placed to match this fucking tile right here. And so we can't see into the future, but the future is causally determined by the things of the present. Because cause and effect, those are the chains. The chain of cause and effect links everything together, the past into the present and into the future. And so everything that's going to happen to me, it's already determined. Like if I had full knowledge of everything, then I'd be able to extrapolate my entire future. But of course, none of us have that knowledge of everything. So that's what it is. I'm in this fucking tile, and it's just an uncertain time. I hope the next tile is better. I hope the next tile is better. I hope the next tile is better. And then eventually I'm just gonna step off this fucking balcony. Like eventually that's the end of my life. And I just hope it counts for something, That phrase doesn't mean anything, count for something. It's like, what would that even mean? If you deconstruct that phrase itself doesn't mean anything, count for something. Like it's very subjective and arbitrary and undefinable and unmeasurable and qualitative. But I guess to the extent that qualitatively our life can count for something, I hope that mine qualitatively does count for something, just to redeem everything that's happened, just, yeah, not much else to say, but gonna check out of this hotel, hopefully make it to the operating room tomorrow at the designated time, and hopefully not get botched, hopefully ascend, because my will just made that a big arc that I've been following to ascend as far as possible. And it's not like the arc's gonna go on forever. You can't do more and more procedures forever, but I'm gonna go ahead and carry this on to the end. And then there's some very important life goals I have, relationally. There's one girl that's very, very important to me, and those are kind of the next things I'll pursue. So that's what's going on. Next long form piece of content, I can't tell you when it'll come, because these things have to be authentic. Even though it helps my channel, helps my brand, even though it might help my business interests, you know, as I try to offer more stuff in the future, it's just, I can't fucking force this stuff. They're fucking calling me because I haven't checked out and I'm supposed to, so I need to fucking go. So one thing I'll add as I check into this new stay here for the week is that whenever my will is strongly attached to a goal, especially the type of thing where I'm like working on it daily and it's like something that's daily fixation, daily progress, it feels like it gives me structure. Like when the will is strongly attached to a certain goal, it feels like a structuring principle that kind of makes sense of the confusion and just the mass of possibilities and just the mass of everything around me. But then once that's accomplished, or once my will dies to that idea and I need to do something else, that's when everything feels really confusing, really opaque, really foggy. And that's just when I'm kind of floating around in the water. And so those are the times I don't like. I like the times when it feels aligned, you know, when I have that goal that I'm pursuing and it feels like I have a place in the world. But times like right now, I feel like I'm a traveler without a home, with no home to go back to, basically.
I'm in this transitional period in life where, you know, I could move anywhere, where I lost the job that I had and the income stream that I had besides that I shut down. Like my mind just needed me to take a break from it. And being here in this foreign country, being really depressed today, I'm just struck by how there's no plan, there's no instruction manual given for life. And it's so much fucking easier if you're one of those NPCs, if you just follow the normal trajectory, if you buy into some idea that a corporate job is fulfilling and just a basic LTR, a basic, you know, have the kids and live that lifestyle is fulfilling, then you kind of don't have to figure out like some of these questions of like, what the fuck you're even doing? Because like, you're kind of just following that pre-packaged life that's before you. But what if you're not quite wired typically? You know, what if you're not neurotypical? What if the things that are fulfilling to other people just aren't fulfilling to you? Because if that's the case, then there's no clear direction. There's no clear direction, no clear purpose, teleology. And if your will doesn't attach to a purpose and make it compelling, then you're going to be completely aimless. It's not like someone can just select a purpose that's meaningful to them. Like, that's something that their mind has to do, and it's impersonal, and they can't control it. So I'm walking through here, you know, there's these locals, there's expats, there's all these people who are just unthinkingly heading to whatever errand they're heading towards. And they're heading there because they're just following the law of strongest motives, just like I am all the time, just like you are all the time. Where the thing that makes the most sense to us, the thing that seems the most enjoyable, satisfying to us, that's the thing that we are mechanically going to do. And that law of the strongest motive that determines all of these people crossing the crosswalk over there, why they're crossing it, where they're going, what they're thinking, it determines all of it. And this is all very basic stuff, first principles, like obviously people follow motives and we live in a causal reality. Nothing is not cause. Everything I do had causes, and therefore I'm not fucking responsible for who or what I am. I'm just a product of the things that made me who I am. It's a very complicated question of how one becomes what one is. And at least to me, thinking through the question of the self and causality, it makes the self seem very, very unimportant. Very arbitrary, because if certain factors were different, then the random number generated that I would have had some different digits. But I happen to be who I am, and that doesn't mean that I'm somehow special or something. It just means that when the random number generator was pressed, I was just the number that came out. There's nothing special or unique about that any more than, again, if you just press a random number generator, that number, calling that unique, calling that special. And so calling an individual special, calling the self special, or yourself special, it's just wordplay. It's conflating the idea of rarity with an idea of a word that kind of means rarity, but then also smuggles in some ideas of like importance and value and all of these connotations that are not contained innately in the idea of rarity. So just walking on this bridge, I'll just try and walk to the hotel because when the traffic is this slow, it's like even getting a cheap rideshare ride doesn't really help that much. So I think a couple of the other things I've been thinking about, I've talked a lot about neurochemistry, maybe not on here so much, but all the stuff I wrote in my school group back when that existed, or just talking to people individually, or on looksmax.org, the things I've written. I can get all these procedures. Let's say I'm like solid childlike at that point. Like I've dramatically ascended beyond reproach to a very high level, a very high, outlier level for a guy, no matter what the circles are. And let's say I do that, I can still have miserable days. And then I had happy days when I look terrible, because the only thing that matters is dopamine, is serotonin, is oxytocin, is noradrenaline, etc. ad infinitum. And only the most clueless people, which yes, it's like 99% of people, have a peripheralist view of happiness. Peripheralist as in they're thinking in terms of things on the periphery, things outside the self. Whereas what actually determines your happiness is literally things like it's your level of dopamine. It's neurochemistry, and that's it. You can be in a poor situation, but if your neurochemical state is favorable, then you're going to be happy, and vice versa. And so it's like, I'm here because my will has attached to the idea of ascending. It's just kind of an arc that's been going on for a long time. But I know full well that it's not going to solve everything. Because the things that cause unhappiness, it's not really solvable with our current technology. We haven't been able to create a state, create conditions where it's only positive neurochemistry, never negative. It's not possible, unfortunately. And so it's like, I hope my life improves. I hope it's, worthwhile, this arc that I'm pursuing, but it's not like it's even been a choice for me to pursue it, because I'm just following the will blindly. I'm following the law of strongest motives blindly, just like everyone else, all the time. So these are just some things that are going through my head, and it's just, and I'm glad that I'm not just another NPC. I'm glad that I have some individuation, and that, I'm a little bit different than other people. I do kind of like aspects of that. But I'm just thinking through how crazy this is and how I didn't choose any of it, and just people who have much worse situations than mine, people who have much better situations than mine. And it's never anyone's fault. It's never anyone's fault. It's a causal reality, which means that everything that happens for a cause. Everything that happens has to happen of necessity. And then past tense, everything that did happen, it cannot have gone any differently. But I think being aware of that, it doesn't really take the pain away. I think things like guilt, it helps dispel that. I never feel guilt because anything I did or didn't do, it was of sufficient grounds that happened or didn't happen. So there's that. But as far as things like regret, it's like, it's not fully solvable just by being aware of how things went. Or maybe regret's solvable, but just at least like lamenting things that went poorly, or lamenting things about a poor current situation. There's no amount of intellectualization that can get one around that or past that. Because this life is characterized by constant suffering, constant willing, where we don't achieve things and it's miserable, or we do achieve things and we're disillusioned. And so then the will attaches to a new goal, creates an illusion around that, and then that's the next thing that we're going to go after, put all of our attention into this life. So it all feels very derealized. I feel like just getting off the sidewalk from that. It all feels very derealized, very fake. If you think through everything, it's just, everything kind of reduces to nothing. Everything kind of reduces to nothing. Just arrangements of matter doing what that matter is destined to do. Sure, what the order of operations is. Do I get depressed? I'm in depressed states, and then I begin thinking of first principles, and I begin thinking in like a very meta-aware way? Or is it the opposite, where I start thinking about those things? I'm pretty sure it's the low state that comes first. And why does it have to coincide with these mental states, like the things I'm thinking about? I don't even know. It's like the will's activity just kind of shuts down, and the things that usually, feel important kind of feel diminished and derealized. Like, I just don't really care about them anymore. So I'm just finding my way out of this mall here. I actually found my way back to the entrance of this mall, and it's just like, I don't know, it made me think of something that's hard to put into words. Like, it doesn't really matter that I just walk in a circle. Like, who really cares? Everything we kind of do is circles, is cyclical. Whether it's just, the general getting up and going to bed, or, more longer term things, like the longer term process of the will giving us a goal that we must pursue, and then us pursuing it day in, day out, and the will giving us a strong illusion of what it is and what it'll give us. And then, maybe we don't achieve it and there's the pain of that, or we do achieve it and then there's the pain of it not quite living up to that illusion. And so then, instead of seeing the trick and subsisting all activity, the will just gives us another operative that we have to slave after, really until the very end. And this is how life goes for people. It's just that, most people aren't meta aware. They're not thinking in terms of the blind striving of the human mechanism and how the self, yourself, and none of it matters. We didn't author any of it, because it's a product of multiple things, none of which were in our control. Multiple causal factors, where genetics is a starting point, but then just everything else following the law of strongest motives until the very end. So it just seems very surreal, and kind of a big weight to bear, this type of consciousness. It just all feels very derealized, I guess. It's the word that keeps coming up whenever I'm kind of journaling about these things, talking about these things. Derealized. Like, this stuff all feels fake. It feels like a dream that I'm kind of provisionally accepting, but that could just as easily be a dream as something real. And I just think I have a pathological, lack of attachment to things in this life. There's a couple things my will is attaching to still. But besides that, there's just nothing out there. There's all these people here, and what are these people fucking doing? What are they fucking doing? They're just doing whatever their mind gave them to do. And we can only do what we will. We have to do what we will, but we can't will what we will, because the will, the self, that is the self. We don't have another self to, make choices for the lower self. That doesn't make any fucking sense. And so it's just so absurd and mechanical. Like, the person on the phone, whatever, who is he talking to? Like, the person that he met, that he's talking to right there, he was bound to meet them. Like, the chain of dominoes that falls, cause and effect. He was going to meet them basically since the beginning of time, whatever the origin of the world looked like. And so in these states of just kind of ego detachment, and of just really contemplating everything from a zoomed out view, it's just really difficult to bear this existence. Like, everything, bad that happens, just like everything good that happens, it's all impersonal and determined. Because people are going somewhere, and why is that? There's a causal chain going back to the beginning of time that determined it to, be what it is. So, it's one of those things. I don't want to be talking in circles and stuff. I'm strapped. I'm in the movie theater. I'm strapped to the fucking chair. And no matter what happens, if I don't like the movie or whatever, it's I can't escape it. And yeah, you might be thinking, well, there is an escape to it. Yeah, but guess what? You can only take that escape if the law of motives makes that the strongest, most compelling option available. So you gotta be careful with how horrible these platforms like YouTube are now. So even then, there's no escape. There's no reprieve. we're here. It'd just be great if I could get some kind of, some kind of enjoyment, fulfillment out of this crazy existence. It's not in my power, whether I will or not. If it wasn't my power, then all the bad years that have happened, I would have undone them. And so some kind of ambulance just went by. And for me, an ambulance is always a very sobering reminder of the temporality of life, a reminder of what comes the moment that the end point of life happens, which, I mean, I'm almost saying like there's something that comes, there's nothing that comes. It's just, there is something and then there's not something, there's just nothing. And who knows, that person that it's going to, they might already be dead, they might be bound to die today. And all of their hopes and dreams and aspirations, I'm kind of repeating myself from that first video that got banned. It's all gone forever. It's, everything that made them is never going to be repeated, unless there's eventually so many human beings where we do start having exact duplicates of people that have lived before, which is weird to think about, the whole doppelganger, type of thing. Kind of almost seems like dehumanizing, but then again, there's not really anything human about this existence to begin with. Humanity, what a myth. We're animals, we're these collections of molecules doing what we have to do for the law of strongest motives, and we have a higher consciousness than the animals, which means more pleasures, but it also means much more pain, because we don't just have the pains of the present, we have the pains of the past that we can think about, that we can ruminate on. We even have the pains and uncertainties of the future. We're not like animals or, very low intelligent Homo sapiens who are only in the present. Man, they built this part of the wall around this tree stump right there. Presumably there was once a tree like those, and then the tree fucking fell. And isn't that just like everything that we build? I'm trying to build a life, I'm trying to do all these things. There's people I care about, there's stuff I want to do. Friends that I have, is a girl I care about. And in the end, it's like, that's our life, and we build this stuff around it, and then eventually the life is going to go away. And this will go away too. The stuff that we build, it's not going to be forever. I mean, occasionally there's people from the distant past that we know about just because they had such a profound impact in our causal reality, like Genghis Khan, 1 in 200 people being, related to him, being offspring of his descendants, of his, but yeah, guys, so it's just one of those days, and if you are a little bit sentient, if you have just, some degree of thinking through things, and you get really, really depressed sometimes, you can probably relate. You probably have these derealized states where you just zoom way out, or alternatively, or simultaneously, you zoom way in, however that works. And it's just a lot to bear. It's just a lot to bear. None of this matters. People going to whatever dinner they're going to, or heading home from work, and they have this job just so they can provide for themselves, just so they can continue living, just so they can continue living until the point where they no longer continue living because they die of whatever cause. And it's just also self-referential, also absurd. There's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no teleology to this. And so I'm just here 3 days out from my procedures, and just kind of in one of those states. I try not to potentiate the energy that these states contain by, using substances or alcohol. I mean, alcohol is literally a fucking depressant. So I've always gotten terrible results from it. It always just makes me, less of who I am. But that's what's going on. This world it's crazy. It's really not funny. There's nothing funny about any of this. Except at the same time, it's like this world is too serious to be taken seriously. It's like at the same time, it kind of is all a cosmic joke. Life's too serious to be taken seriously. I'm just going to try to do my best here. But yet I know that there's no such thing as trying my best or trying my worst. There's just me living, and anything that I do. But the impetus for this video is just 3 days out from the procedures. I'm just here in this country, walking around this mall, and just hits me like, this is just all fucking crazy. This is all fucking crazy.